Amy Thurman back again with 100 Days, 100 Emotions. We're on day 49 today. We're talking about defensiveness. If you have caught the rest of these or you would like to see the others, just go to hashtag 100 Days, 100 Emotions. That's the numerical number 100, streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. The purpose of these is to help us understand that we all have emotions, we all feel them, they're natural, it's part of being human, but how that we can also use them for good. And so I love being able to do this and sharing not only my story but other people's stories with you as well. And so I have special guests that I have come on. If you would like to be a special guest, please reach out to me either through a comment or a message or somehow contact me. I would love to get you plugged in. We can find an emotion that works for you. And I do have something in store for my special guests that you will want to be a part of that I haven't announced yet. It's an exciting surprise that I will announce later, but you'll definitely want to be a part of it. So let me know if you'd like to get plugged in. Okay, let's get into this defensiveness today. I would love to introduce you to my friend, Brian King. Brian, thank you so much for being here.
It's my absolute pleasure, Amy. And I just want to throw in there, this is the third time that we've tried to get together and we finally made it happen.
Yes, exactly. You know, I was telling Brian before we came on that as frustrating as it can be to have to reschedule, that I just knew that it would happen when it was time. Like somebody needs to hear this when it happens. So today's the day. Somebody needs to hear this. And I'm so glad that we can make it happen and that we could be on here today. So thank you again, Brian.
It's a pleasure.
We're talking about defensiveness today. And so I like to pop up a piece of text to kind of get us started. And today it says that defensiveness can occur in response to a perceived threat, criticism, or challenge. And sometimes it can also help us understand our emotional triggers and why certain situations or comments cause us to feel defensive. Now, reading that, I'm like, ooh, I've been there. I can feel it coming up. Like, I know how that feels. Most of the time for me, I become defensive when people misunderstand me. Like, I'm an out of the box thinker. I'm not a cookie cutter person. I think out of the box. And so sometimes when I share things that are out of the box, people don't understand them or they take them the wrong way. And that's what comes up for me when I recall feeling defensive. I would love to hear your story and know what you have learned about the emotion defensiveness, Brian.
I learned defensiveness was a major state in my life. Because I grew up with undiagnosed autism, ADHD, and dyslexia. And it was very, very difficult for me to function socially and in the classroom. So I was routinely criticized as there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
You know, you're too lazy, you're not motivated, you're too dreamy. So I took feedback as a personal attack on my character because that's what I was used to. So if somebody was disagreeing with an opinion I had or a fact that I told them they said was wrong, of course, that was a comment on my character. And if people don't like who you are, they tend to exclude you.
Yes.
So my mind had all of those associations. So if someone were to say to me, you know what, Brian, I really don't agree with that, immediately the anxiety would start. I'd start feeling this threat of rejection and I'd push back. I'd fight for it. You don't know what you're talking about. I read this and so on and so forth because I'm fighting for my inclusion.
Yeah.
I'm fighting to not be rejected. Now I know this now because I've done all the work to get to the bottom of it. But growing up, I had no idea why I would get so angry if somebody disagreed with me. And the bottom line is, it's not because they disagreed with me. It's because all the way back from my childhood, I learned that if a person didn't respond well to something I created or offered, it meant rejection or criticism.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And it pretty much mirrors what I was just saying. Like it's just people misunderstand. Like we're sharing these things to try to help people because you and I, both of our hearts is to help people. Mm-hmm. And when it comes across as being something other than helping people, it's almost offensive, which is a part of the word defensive. They kind of go together. But I hear what you're saying, where the defensiveness can, and it's like this with every emotion. We have talked about this pretty much in every one of these episodes, that defensiveness can lead to other things. Like you can go down a rabbit trail, and it can lead to much worse feeling emotions, which sounds like that's what you experienced.
Absolutely. It can reinforce feelings of shame. Because if you
Yeah.
already feel like you're not good enough and you make an effort to contribute, hey, I know a little bit about this subject, or hey, is it okay if I hang out with you? And you're thinking to yourself, maybe they'll like me, maybe they'll think I'm funny or whatever. And then you hear the no. And again, it feels like rejection.
Yes, yes. I'm just thinking, like, how, because I know that you have learned a lot about that. You have studied it. That's what you do now, which is what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But how did you how did you learn to move out of that? Because that's what happens in with all of us. Like, things that happen in our childhood affect all through life. And so I'm curious if you can share how you kind of transitioned out of that to
Absolutely.
become a more aware person of what's going on.
I was incredibly insecure to begin with because I had a lot of emotional abuse in my family.
Oh, okay.
And my graduation present from high school was stage 3 testicular cancer. So I spent that summer in
Wow.
chemotherapy.
Oh my gosh.
And that was like the rock bottom emotionally for me in what I'd experienced up to that point. And I was so angry and I was mistrusting of people and I was so hurt after all that. And my friend group scattered. I wrote a whole book about this. Okay. So I won't belabor the
No
point.
spoilers.
But after I got out of that, I couldn't let go of the anger and the mistrust. And as I tried to create new relationships, I ultimately ended up pushing people away. And when
Yeah.
I found myself in my early 20s, bitter at the world and friendless, it occurred to me that maybe it's me. Maybe there's
Mm.
something I need to work on. So I connected with a therapist and spent a couple of years really digging into that. And I learned to trust again. I got myself a girlfriend that she and I were together for 2 years. And I just started seeing the possibilities again, as opposed to what if this happens or what if that. And because it was a male social worker that I worked with, that's what opened my mind to, hey, maybe I could pursue that path and be helpful to people. And that's what I did. But it took me first acknowledging that I played a role in my experience.
Yes.
I couldn't pretend that it was the weather that made me upset, or this person looked at me the wrong way, or everybody else doesn't get it. After a while, when the people go away, there's no one else to point a finger at. You're
Yeah.
the one left. You're still miserable. Maybe you're playing a role in that.
Absolutely. It's, and that's exactly what happened with me. Like, all these things happened, which I don't share a lot about, but, and I finally had to realize that I was the common denominator. Like, in all of these situations, I was the common denominator. And so what you said is so key, that sometimes it takes, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we play a role in this, that it's not always someone else's fault. We play a role in it too. But that at times we have to ask for help. You and I talked about this before we came on.
Mm-hmm.
I told you how hard it is for me to ask for help. But that my whole mission is to polish the mirror. Every answer you seek can be found within, and that is true. But there are times that we have to have help from other people. I have a therapist. I think everyone should have a therapist. Like, there are just things that we cannot, because of our experiences, that I think we're just blind to. That
Absolutely. And we
a
don't know what we don't know.
yes, yes, that a therapist can help us see a completely different perspective, and give us the tools that we need to get to where we want to be, because we don't know those tools. The therapists are trained
Mhm.
in those tools, but they don't come naturally to us. And so, oh my goodness, my therapist has helped me so much. I totally agree with that. I love that so
Yeah,
much.
I've been to many therapists, some to deal with my deeper trauma that I just did not have the tools for. And also now I have coaches that help me with business stuff and how to do better marketing and be better organized. There are countless people out there that know stuff we don't, and the people that are so afraid of being vulnerable insist on figuring it out themselves. And that, by some people, may look at, oh, they're so strong, they're so determined. No, they're afraid.
Yeah.
I don't care how big your muscles are. If you won't ask for help, there's fear behind that.
Yeah. That's hitting me straight in the heart, Brian. Because it's so true. I told you before we came on here that I struggle to ask for help. Like, I need help right now with something specific. And, I told Brian I have an opportunity to do a TED talk, but I need help with that. And I'm really struggling to ask for help. And I do believe it's from a fear perspective. It's because of the fear that's behind it.
One thing that we can unwittingly cause ourselves a problem with is we hear help and we immediately jump to helpless. Thinking if I need help, it means I'm helpless, I'm weak, I'm powerless. No, it means you have got a four-handed job before you and you've only got two.
Oof, I love that.
It's not
So
weakness
true.
or failure. We've learned in our very competitive culture that if you can't succeed as an individual, it doesn't count. In my opinion, rugged individualism is perpetuated by people who don't want us working together. They want us seeing each other as competition. That is another conversation as well.
Right? I'm thinking, oh my goodness, all these golden nuggets you're throwing at me today. I need to make a list of them. So good. And it's like literally hitting me between the eyes, and my brain is exploding a little bit. And when you said that, I was thinking, that's not who I am. I'm a very competitive, but not in that way. Like, that's part of what this series is, to help showcase people, share what you do, get the word out there that you are amazing and people need to know more about you. And so that's not who I am. I don't want to be that person who comes across like in that way.
And one thing that I really emphasize in how I just think of life is going for the win-win as much as possible. Asking for help is a win-win, because one of our primary needs as a human being is to contribute, is to just make the world better because we showed up. When you allow someone to help you, you are allowing them to contribute. So they're getting a need met through that, and you're also getting the support you need.
Yeah.
So there's no burden in asking someone else for help, unless they, for some reason, think asking for help is bad and they respond negatively.
Yeah. Yeah. And that may be where my fear lies, in the unknown. Like, I don't do well with unknown. I'm very, and it's interesting because I have a very allowing spirit. Like, I allow things, whatever's supposed to come in, excuse me, I allow to come in. But I don't like the unknown. I think that's normal. Most of us don't like the unknown. But yeah,
I
that's a
struggle with
struggle
that
for me.
still. There are times when I can be more curious and more open to adventure. And then there are times where I just need to know everything that's going to happen, and I need a list and I need the itinerary.
Yes, yes. It is funny how it changes, how that changes. Oh, so good. Okay, let me pop this question up here. We may have already talked about this, but if not, how can defensiveness benefit us? For those of you who are watching, I would love for you to join in our conversation. Share with us any of the things that we've talked about so far. If it strikes a chord with you, I would love for you to get in on the conversation. But also share with us how defensiveness can benefit you. I think it shows me what's important, like what I think is important. When I feel that defensiveness coming up, it's because something has struck a chord that I know is important to me.
Well, defensiveness in general tells you where you feel threatened.
Yeah.
And it can be because something's important to you. You know, if you're at a civil rights march and somebody is screaming racial slurs, you might push back against that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Or if someone looks, let's see, you got your hair done and they say, wow, who did that to you? I would never do that. And you thought it looked really good. So now you push back. Something is a threat to you. So your opportunity in that case is to ask yourself, man, what did I feel so threatened by? Why did I
Mm,
respond like that? It's an opportunity to be curious about yourself, because too many people will walk around life with a superficial understanding of themselves and say, oh, that's just how I am. No, it's likely conditioned,
yeah.
and it's worth your time to just be a little curious. And if you're afraid to go there by yourself, get yourself a therapist or a coach.
Yeah. Yes.
Because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I rely on my coaches as well as my therapist too, so much.
Yeah, that's the main thing that comes to mind is it's a red flag that we have a wound somewhere. Something is hurting in us. And we can either deny it, blame someone else, minimize it, or we can do the work so that we have an option in how we respond to these things, other than just that hair trigger reactivity that seems to control us.
Yes, yes. It's so interesting that you say that, because with my story development, excuse me, my story development clients, we go through these 100 emotions in depth. We look at them, we feel them, and a lot of times they don't want to do that because allowing it to surface is uncomfortable. Like anything that's worth doing can become uncomfortable. And so I feel like that's what this is too. Like you have to get to that place where it's uncomfortable, where you have to see what's there. We don't like to look inside because it's ugly. Like we don't like to acknowledge the things that we have going on in there. But until we do, it's going to continue to stay in there and simmer and bubble and cause issues for us. So I feel like that's so important.
And also understanding that all of our experiences, especially emotions, are temporary visitors. They show up in the moment where they need to get our attention. And then once they're no longer needed, they will leave unless our mind latches onto it. We tell ourselves this big story. In the case of defensiveness, we awfulize it.
Oh, I
And
like
that's
that.
what keeps it alive. You know, that person was so awful. How could they treat me like that? I thought we were friends. The story is the issue.
Mm,
Otherwise, if you knew how to remain present and the issue that you became defensive towards was over and done with, you could move on to a new experience. But we're not taught that anywhere. That's something that we ultimately come across in our efforts to refine ourselves.
yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. Like we hang on to it. Like like we have to have that. Like it just feeds. And that's the thing that we're going to feed it one way or the other. We can feed it by allowing it to play its role, do its part, and then allowing it to go. Or we can feed it by hanging on to it and making it part of us and live inside. And so I think
And
it's so key to acknowledge that.
and it blinds us to so many opportunities. Like I mentioned before, there were so many very kind people that I met when I started college after I went through all the cancer stuff. And I alienated all of them because
Mm,
I was so fixated on the, well, what if this happens again? Or what if they don't, understand me? Or what if they judge me because this happened? And I was so caught up in that, I really couldn't see them. I saw my
yeah.
paranoia, my fear, my insecurity. It prevented me from being present because I was so caught up in that. And it wasn't until I learned how to let the thoughts be like bubbles in the water. They don't have to hang around. They pop up and they pop and they go away. So
Mm,
just learning to let my thoughts do that without getting terribly preoccupied with them, I can be present.
I love that analogy. That's so good. Never heard that.
I just
Definitely
thought of
going
it.
to. Oh, that's so good. I'm definitely going to adopt that one.
Yeah, that's once I get in the flow, a lot of these things just start showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. Like, I feel like, oh, we could talk about this for hours. Just keep going on and on and on, but oh, we need to move on, unfortunately. Oh, so good. I'm going to have to go back and watch this and take notes for sure. Um, you all know, if you have watched this before, that I use an AI image generator to create an image that represents the emotion of the day. And so I have the one for defensiveness today. And it's interesting, this is an AI image, an AI generator, but some of these are so spot on. I mean, looking at them, you wouldn't think that represents defensiveness, but when you look at it, I can always find something in it that represents defensiveness. And so let me pop this up, and then I'll full screen it, and we can see if we can find in defensiveness in this image here.
Yeah.
I know, right? Isn't it wild how this thing does this? I'm just like,
Well, one thing that I appreciate, and I'm colorblind, so this one,
oh,
so that
okay.
all the different colors I'm seeing in this image could represent all the different emotions that can come up with defensiveness:
Ooh,
anxiety, anger, fear, sadness,
yeah.
and also things that look like they're flying forward, like somebody's throwing a javelin at the enemy or something.
Right. Yeah. And what I see is like you're just walking along. It's very pretty much flat right here in the foreground, walking along. And then all of a sudden, it's like this battle, like you said, like a battle right there of shards flying. And
And it's not gradual either. It's just like boom. Like
yeah,
when someone becomes defensive, they almost explode on you in some cases.
yeah, yeah. It hits you out of the blue, like you were not expecting that. And it just triggered something within. And that's the result that you get. I love doing these images because it's almost like art therapy. Like you can see a totally different perspective than what we have talked about already. And so I find these so helpful. For those of you watching, if you have other interpretations or see defensiveness in this in a different way, please share that with us. I love learning about other people's perspectives and what you see in these as well. Oh my goodness, Brian, this has been so good. Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure having you.
Likewise, this has been a lot of fun. I love having these conversations.
Oh, I'm so glad. I would love for you to share with our viewers a little bit about you, what you do, and how they can reach you if they'd like to work with you.
Thank you very much. I'd love to.
Of
I
course.
work primarily with the neurodivergent community, autism, ADHD, primarily with mothers who are dealing with it themselves or have kids that are neurodivergent, and they need help with self-care, with setting their own boundaries, with saying no, and also learning how to support their children. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I just in visiting with you the few times that I have, oh my goodness, I can only imagine what an amazing resource you are to these people because you have lived it. Like it's not like you went and studied a whole bunch of stuff and that's all the knowledge you have.
Yeah, I have a
You
lot of lived experience to draw on.
Yes, yes, and that makes such a huge difference because you know firsthand what it feels like, what it's like to live it, and how you have been able to work through it
Yeah.
yourself so that
And
you can
how
help
to
other people.
actually do the work to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm telling you, if you struggle or need help in this way, in any kind in this way, please reach out to Brian. His website is briancanhelp.com and you can contact him there. I know he would be happy to help you and work with you, and such a good resource. I can't tell you. Oh my goodness.
Thank you for
So
that. I
good.
appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, of course. And I will go ahead and make a plug for myself. Thank you, Brian, for the encouragement to do this. If you would like to contribute to my TED Talk, help me to get my message out of love and resilience, there is a spot on my website, polishthemirror.com or getamyshelp.com. where you can donate there to help me be able to do this, to help me spread this message. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. I appreciate this so much. If you have found it helpful or think it will be helpful for others, please share it. And again, if you would like to be part of this, just reach out to me and I would love to get you plugged in. All right, until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.